Welcome to the Jenny Carlson Show. It is Bedlam week, and we are reminiscing with one of the greatest players in Bedlam history, Rashaun Woods. The former Cowboy receiver had two of the biggest and best games in rivalry history. But before we get to that, I want to say a quick word of thanks to these great sponsors for supporting the Jenny Carlson Show. Oklahoma Ford Dealers, Laser Light Skin Clinic, MidFirst Bank, the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum, Fire Lake Golf and Fire Lake Arena, Next Generation Roofing. And remember, drive into your best in Oklahoma Ford dealers today for the best deals on Ford's full lineup of trucks and SUVs. Ford is the best in Oklahoma. This week, we welcome in Rashaun Woods, Oklahoma State legend and Bedlam legend. We know you're busy, Rashaun, coaching football down in Tyler, Texas. So thanks for joining us to talk a little Bedlam this week.
Of course.
Well, let's get to it here. First of all, obviously, this rivalry is coming to a close. No more Bedlams on the schedule for the foreseeable future. How are you feeling about Bedlam ending?
You know, personally, I don't want to see it go. I think it's always good for Oklahomans, and to be a part of that. Growing up, I was a part of being excited, just like everybody else, that game was going to go on. And to know that it's not going to happen, there's some disappointment there for sure.
Yeah. Well, talk a little bit more about what Bedlam was to you growing up, because you're an Oklahoma born and bred guy, went to Millwood, lived in Oklahoma City. How did Bedlam sort of intersect with your childhood?
Well, it was one of the games that media covered probably more than any other game for Oklahoma. You know, the TV and the networks and stuff are not quite the way they were. They were then as they are now. And so you got plenty of coverage on this game. A lot of people were talking about it. It was pretty exciting. There was always some local guys that played for either Oklahoma State or Oklahoma that you somewhat knew as a child. And so you kind of paid attention to those guys and how successful they were because it hit home. And so all of those things, you know, were really great. They were great to be a part of and witness. And then obviously playing in the game itself was truly a big time deal for a lot of guys like myself.
Yeah, for sure. Was Bedlam week different than other weeks during the season? I mean, we hear coaches will try and say, hey, you know, we treat it like other games, but is there a truth to that, or did Bedlam week feel different once you got to Oklahoma State?
Yeah, you know, from a preparation standpoint, it was the same. You know, the same. We did the same things on the same day as far as preparation is concerned. If there was anything different, maybe we were a little bit more focused on what we need to do our assignment wise, but the preparation was identical, really. And so from that standpoint, we were just ready to go. Every game was important, but the media, I think, and the coverage that it got really, really amplified it. And then the fact that you knew a lot of people that you went to school with, being an Oklahoma guy, everybody was really in tune to that. And that's what they wanted to talk about if you had a chance to talk about or talk with any of your former classmates from high school or parents or anybody, you know, during that time when the game was upon us.
Well, Rashaun, you played for a guy in Les Miles who you were talking about media earlier. He was not shy when he was in front of cameras and reporters, but he did some things that a lot of OSU coaches didn't do. He won back-to-back Bedlams, and even though he talked a good game during Bedlam week, he got results. What was that like to play for a guy that was so outward about his team, that rivalry? What was that like?
Well, Coach Miles was determined to have success. He didn't let the present circumstances and the fact that we didn't have a really good year that year in 2001 detour him from the main goal. He was excited. He wanted to have success. He wanted us to understand that we could play at a high level. And he did a good job of conveying that. And he really believed that. And that was one thing I admired about him, is that he really believed that we had a chance to go win every game, regardless of who it was. And playing against Oklahoma was no different. I think that probably stood out to me more than anything else, that it didn't matter who we played. It was about us.
Well, when you guys headed to Norman in 2001, speaking of that first of two games that he won as the OSU coach back-to-back there, OU's coming off a national championship. You guys head to Norman having won 3 games. OU's ranked 4th, possibly heading to another national title game. What was it about that? I want to talk about the catch, obviously. We're getting there, but what do you remember about the buildup just to that game and all that went into that year, 2001?
Yeah, so we knew that we had played. We got beaten pretty bad early in the year against Texas, and Oklahoma had beaten Texas that year. And so it was no question that Oklahoma was a solid football team, and you had those guys on the road, and so it appeared to be extremely insurmountable task. But for me, more than anything, with that year, you learned about preparation. I mean, we were learning how to play at a high level and prepare at a high level, and that was something that being a young football team, we needed more of, and so it was clear to us with that game and moving forward that, man, if you prepare, your ability, it should take over. It does matter. The talent that you have on the team does matter. But your ability to prepare and do things right can sometimes close that gap. And, just so happened that, man, everything that we did from a execution standpoint and a toughness standpoint, it brought us closer to the victory. It brought us closer to the win. And so we just needed to keep it close. And Oklahoma made some mistakes. And before you know it, it's a one-score game. And, we're in striking distance. And once you get to that point, then you really believe, or the entire team really believes they can win. And once you get somebody with hope, or you get a team with hope, man, anything can happen. And, that's why, we enjoy to watch the game, or that's why they say that's why you play the game.
Yeah, and you guys were in striking distance there, but you hadn't gotten the end zone all day. But you guys drive, I think it was 75 yards in 6 plays, Rashaun, and you march down the field, obviously punctuated by your touchdown catch. What do you remember? Set up that play, set up that moment for us.
Yeah, so I want to say maybe it was a third down. It was a couple plays. I think I maybe caught 3 passes that drive, and we had a hard time running the football. I think the first third down and 7, I ended up catching a slant on the right side on their sideline where I broke a tackle and got a first down. Then the next one I maybe had a penalty of some sorts, or got stopped, back, or we'll have a lost yardage play. And then Terrence Davis Bryant made a play on Roy Williams, their best defensive player, over the top of him on 3rd and long, which continued that drive and put us in striking distance. I think maybe before that, I caught another pass on the sideline that ended up, moving the chains again and pushing us into a position to get the possible game winner. And I don't know at the time why we were rushing to the line of scrimmage, because I want to say we had maybe 2 minutes left, or a minute and 50 something seconds left. And why we were rushing to the line of scrimmage, is beyond me, because we had time. But again, when you're in that moment, everybody's excited. They're definitely bothered or out of sorts. Oklahoma's defense is definitely out of sorts in that moment. And the coach was screaming the play from the sideline. I mean, Coach Miles is screaming it. And we know it's coming. He's throwing a double move, and they know it's coming to me. And they're all looking at me over there. The defensive backs are looking at me. They know it's coming. And at that point, though, it's not a whole lot you can do. You're going to do everything you can, but we just believed, and it was a perfect throw by Josh, and the rest is history.
What do you think enabled you? Like you said, Derek Strait is the guy who was closest to you when you made the catch, but everybody in Crimson knew it was headed your way. What do you think helped you be able to make that play in that moment when there was so much attention on you?
Yeah, I didn't worry about, and I still don't to this day. I don't worry about, the outside factors. I'm only worried about what I can do, what my job and my responsibility is. I did not think about who was covering me, where they thought the ball was going. None of that mattered to me. I knew that I had a route to run, what the coach called. I did what the coach coached me to do, and I needed to make a play. And I didn't worry about all the other things that can factor in, or that can change, or could happen. You just kind of live in the now and do the best you can. And my best was good enough to bring that ball down and get the win.
I know I have seen you catch that ball a gazillion times on replay. How many times have you seen yourself catch that?
As many times as you have. So every week, And this week has been even more. With it being the last game, it's all over social media. I got people sending it to me. Everybody wants to talk to me about it, and I try to do my best with my time constraints to help people to relive that moment. But yeah, it's quite a bit.
So the thing is, even after your 16-13 heroics, you had even more the next year. 12 catches, 226 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, you guys blew out Oklahoma. The score wasn't indicative of maybe how much you guys dominated. You had a couple of long cross-country scores, 41, 60 yards. I mean, what stands out to you about that game? Because I know people probably rushed to talk to you about 16-13, but that next year, 2002, might have been one of your best games as a Cowboy.
Yeah, and again, you win one time, and you believe that you can win, and that the team was trending upward. We were getting better every week. We were in every game, just about, and that game was no different. We knew that we can go in and win that game, especially that game, and with it being at home, we had a great plan. I mean, we were playing at a really, really high level. It's kind of the era before you had a tremendous amount of talent. Some of those teams after us are very, very talented, and our team was pretty talented. Don't get me wrong, but again, that OU team was again a pretty good team, and none of that mattered because Coach Miles and company, those guys helped us focus on not necessarily the opponent that we're playing, but on us.
Do you feel like it sounds like you see those as really foundational years for what we're seeing at Oklahoma State right now. If that's the case, you have to take, and the guys you played with have to take an immense amount of sense of pride in what's going on at Oklahoma State. Is that how you sense those guys feel?
Yeah, I do. And me personally, we all play a part in our time or our tenure at the university that we played at. And so, for us, having that success at that moment was at a time where Oklahoma State, they were kind of up and down. And so, you have to think that when guys are being recruited and all of these great, really, really good receivers that have come through Oklahoma State afterwards, every one of them, at some point, somebody has mentioned to them my name or the coaches or past coach's name or Coach Gundy maybe reminisces since he was there during that time about the different teams, the different players over the years. And, it's such a long time ago that there are other players now that, have a part in that. Right. There's Brandon Whedon's of the world that have a part in who Oklahoma State is today. The quarterbacks that come and play there know of him and probably watch film on some of the things that they have done that they keep in archives that they show. Mason Rudolph, Justin Blackman, who was just inducted. Right. I could go on and on of all the great players that came after me. Right. Maybe I had something to do with that, but then with those guys and the guys after them. And so we all, and just like with me personally, I remembered or I was excited about playing and watching Coach Gundy. I was excited about watching Hartley Dykes. I had a chance to talk and see him play. And so that inspired me to be a Cowboy. That inspired me to be the best that I could be. His records and stuff from a personal goal standpoint was something that I reached to attain. And I got to imagine that, as lofty as my records that I held, there are guys that are there right now. There are guys before, James Washington got a couple of them or, and those other guys dream and say, I'm going to break every record. In fact, there's a guy there right now that I coached, Tyke Andrews at Enid, that broke every record at the high school level at Enid High School. And the last thing that he tells me when he, is able to get a scholarship to go play there is that, if he is able to, he wants to try to break every Oklahoma State record I have. And so, that's how that deal goes. They see those guys goals, they see those guys, they see us, and they say, hey, if he can do it, I know that guy, then I can do it. And then if the team can do it, then the next team says, if that team can do it, then we can do it. And before you know it, they're doing it. And they're just chasing the carrot, right? And it just keeps going. And before you know it, 20 consecutive winning seasons. Coach Gundy's doing a tremendous job there. The consistency is big time. I don't know if it'll ever be done. And the things that they're doing overall as a university on the football side of it has really been exceptional over the couple decades.
I agree wholeheartedly, but you said it's been a long time ago, and I don't want 2001 to feel like it's been a long time ago. That makes us getting old, Rashaun,
That's right.
right?
You were there too. You were there too. So you were there to cover it all. So I mean, it's a crazy journey.
I don't want to think it's been a long time ago, but yet you were mentioning Enid, which leads into the last couple of questions I wanted to lob your way. You've moved to Tyler, Texas, Tyler High, head football coach there after several years of coaching in Oklahoma. You were head coach, obviously, at John Marshall, then went to Enid. Your bunch there at Tyler, 6-3, heading into a last regular season game against Forney. Give us a little update about how things are going down there.
Yeah, it's been going really well. The first year is always, in my opinion, the toughest year. Building relationships with the guys, getting to know the lay of the land, finding out who's for you and who's against you, and avoiding all those landmines that go along with it. But the great thing about this game is that football is football. We got some really good players. It's a great town. It's a beautiful place here in East Texas, and it's different. It's different, but it's still some same as far as the game of football is, and it's been a very, very enjoyable experience for me.
So some playoff implications with this game Friday night. Does the head coach get nervous at all before a game like this?
Again, I take it just like for the most part, like I was a player. You only can control what you can control, and that's us. And so my deal has been building the guys, building this football team the way that I know how. This will be, the third time for me to kind of build it back up, and I know or try to avoid some of the pitfalls that go along with that. And I try to get these guys to just think about themselves. Don't worry about the team that we're playing. People put so much stock into the big time teams that you play with, the big time names, and to me, and I tell the guys all the time, a lot of times the name on the jersey beats you before you even get out on the field. And so, that's not who I am. But again, with me being new here, who I am hasn't quite resonated with everybody yet. But it's a process that takes time. But over time, they'll get it, and hopefully they'll take on that same mantra that that I live by. That hey, you worry about you, you do what you have to do every day. You make sure you're doing the best that you can, and that's got to be good enough.
Well, I wish you nothing but the best on Friday and hopefully on into the playoffs. But this has been so great. Thanks for making time for us, Rashaun. I appreciate you doing this so much.
Of course.
I want to thank Rashaun, and thanks to all of you for joining us for the fun this week. If this was your first time hearing or watching the Jenny Carlson Show, be sure to subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Also, if you like what you hear, please leave a review. And remember, you can find all my work at selloutcrowd.com. Thanks to everyone for listening, and we'll see you next week.